Hello out there, and welcome to our New Hampshire Cross Country podcast, New Hampshire Cross Talks. We're here again, episode 8, where we're just talking all things running, cross country, New Hampshire, all good things. And I am Amy Bernard, coach of the Pinkerton team, along with...
I'm Ian French, and I coach at Londonderry.
And somehow I wrangled him into this, and we've been having fun ever since. It's pretty cool.
I still don't quite know how I ended up here.
I don't know, but it's pretty cool. I like
great
it.
Time. Like, this is so much fun. Like,
yeah.
What's better than getting to talk about something that's your hobby?
Right,
right. And other people are like, yeah, I want to hear what those people have to say. It's not cool. It's not all completely stupid.
Right. It's so fun. So fun. And so we just want to, again, say you can find us on Spotify and our YouTube channel. So give us a like and a follow and share with your friends. We want to get all good things about New Hampshire cross country out to everybody. So, please listen, please watch, do all the things.
Yeah. And again, always tell us what you guys want to hear. Like
right.
I'd love if people will come in. Like, oh man, can you guys talk about this in the podcast?
Yeah. It's so cool. Yeah. Please do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just where we like to have a good time. So bring us your fun topics, and even if maybe you think like, oh, that might be too silly. Like
we're pretty silly.
I think we are.
Yeah.
Most of the time, right?
So definitely do that, right? So I'm going to do a shout out. We're going to talk about our division meets, because those championships were certainly barn burners, if you will. And
that's kind of like one of the big pinnacles of the season.
Sure is.
Playoffs.
Sure is. And so how can we not start with our HOKA Athletes of the Week, right? So shout out to Kelsey O'Neill from Bedford and Sauhegan's Toulouse Anderson.
Yeah. For huge days.
Very
impressive stuff.
Right. So with that, I think it would be worth talking about the start of the day, which was the D1 Girls Championships, where, Kelsey certainly earned this honor, taking a slightly surprise victory in that championship. That was pretty amazing. She was the only girl under 19 on the day on the D1 in the D1 race, that is.
Yeah, so I follow the boys a little bit more closely just because that's who I'm coaching.
Right.
So I came in here and I was like, did she win any races prior to D1s? And you were like, I don't think
Not
so.
for cross country that I was aware of.
I mean, she's obviously been talented and had some great success, but I didn't think so. She picked a good one.
Right?
And
a tough day. We'll talk about that after. But her and Fiona Lee, our podcaster, going 1-2. That's such a 1-2 punch. So shout out to those girls. Strong work there. And we can't.
But then also shout out to your three. And with 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, that was exciting.
And if you just saw the top of those results, you'd think it was a dual meet.
Right.
That's amazing. Yeah. You guys you and Bedford, you guys just both had incredible days.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of unfolded the way that I expected, with a pack kind of up at the front, and we said be patient. I really was proud of them for doing so, and kind of like pushing when we needed to, and finishing like that. Just working as a team, they made me really proud.
And obviously your score indicates that your whole team showed up and just generally had a great day, which is like super impressive.
Yeah, well, and it was a tough day, and again, we'll talk about that, but it was certainly a tough day. And so on the team side, I think what would be really interesting to talk about here is the fight for the runner-up plaque 2 and 3.
Oh gosh, how fun is it when it goes to the 6th man?
Seriously.
It just doesn't happen all that often.
That is wild. And not only did it go, so I'm going to pronounce this so poorly, I'm sure, but Bedford's Raisa Caradati? Oh, that's terrible. What do you think? I'm going to give it to
I'm looking at it right now. That's probably as good a guess as I would have made.
She was their 6th runner.
Please come and correct us when you see us tomorrow.
And she was their 6th runner, and also only 11 seconds behind the Dover 6th runner.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Right?
So you could see, you were like, when you're finishing, you were seeing the girl that you needed to catch, and like,
gosh,
I'd be so like,
right. So that's just a tremendous effort from both teams. And we've had luck not be on our side that way before. Mm-hmm. So I definitely get that, but I think that just really illustrates how much of a team sport this really is. So when you think that you don't matter, you do.
You do. And like one
Look
of the
we
things.
said that in unison.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I wish we could say we planned that.
Yeah.
Surely my accent.
Right.
But no, like, when I talk to my guys, going into any of these big meets, one of the things I always say is like, you never know when this person that you're running near, they might be the guy. Like that if you beat them, you change the meet.
Right.
And there's nobody knows like that. Your coaches don't know, their coaches don't know, that runner doesn't know. You never know who the guy is that takes you from second to first or third to second.
Right.
And you got to find, especially late in the race, that, I feel like once you hit the door at D1,
right.
like you've got to find a way to catch at least one more person. And because that literally might be it. You want to be the one catching, not caught.
Right, exactly. And so how about the boys race?
Oh my, it was really exciting to watch. South ran away with it though.
Sure. They've been deep all season.
Yeah, they have been. But going into the meet, I thought it was going to be relatively close between those top three teams. And but it wasn't. South's guys, they showed up.
They did, yeah.
And really persevered through the tough weather conditions, and I think probably just a little better than the other two teams did. And as a result, there was some separation that I wasn't really expecting to see.
Right.
Pinkerton and Salem both still ran pretty well, and but South was just outstanding.
Yeah. I mean, really tight top five.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I was counting, but it was very clear pretty early.
Yeah,
so
anytime you start seeing those scores, they dip below 50 at a divisional meet, that you had to have a tight top five. Otherwise, there's no way you can have a score that low with that many runners and that level of quality of runners. And you can always, you can really pat yourself on the back anytime you can get that sub 50 score at a divisional meet.
Right.
And they did it. I mean, and the next team was a full 50 points behind them.
Yeah. So, and not to be Pinkerton heavy here, because I like to talk about the entire state on this. It's not about Pinkerton, but I will shout out to the boys team, the Long Red Line, because they went into it being like the third ranked team on the day, and they pulled off a runner-up plaque. And I believe this is 18 straight years of one or place, first or second place, and bringing home a plaque.
It's an amazing streak.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it speaks to volumes about so many things about the program and the people that have been involved with it, and obviously Coach Clark, who's the continuity piece there of that whole thing. He's an amazing coach.
Right. They make it, they put it together when it counts. And, we have been saying that all along, that it doesn't matter what you do up to the season. It's on that day. Mm-hmm. So, and then moving on to the D3 races, which were our second races, right, of the day. On the girls' side, I think Hopkinton's Madeline Lane winning with a 24-second margin as a freshman. Just another standout day. She's been consistent all season.
And leading the team.
Yeah, all season.
To the win.
Right.
Which is extra exciting.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Miss Scenic won. Yeah. It was close, though. So they edged out Hopkinton 78-91. So it was a tight race. And what stood out for me there was that their top five, their fifth girl, Amelia Smith, finished 26th in the meet. So, I mean, both teams, low scores, and, that fifth girl, just like a really tight pack there. So, really great job to them.
If you could say that your entire top five would make it as individuals, I feel like that's whew.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yep. So great job to those girls out there.
Yeah. And the boys' side was also pretty cool. This freshman from Guilford is really talented.
Right.
Baselli, Howland, Velakis.
And what time did he run?
16:14.
As a freshman.
He had the third fastest time total for the day.
And it was hot. But
and
we'll
by
talk
then
about that in a minute.
Heat up, and he won by 19 seconds, which is as that gap starts getting a little bit bigger, I think it's hard to keep your foot on the gas to go quite as hard as you maybe could if you were getting pushed the whole way. But man, 16:14, that is a time there, and especially for a freshman, this kid's gonna be good.
Right. Yeah, that's exciting. He's gonna have a great career ahead of him.
It's funny, Guilford just graduated this dude who was every year one of the best runners in the state. You might have thought maybe Guilford, the smaller schools, sometimes they disappear a little bit. Nope.
Oh,
4 more years of seeing Guilford there.
So what do they do up there? Is it the hills? Is it the fresh air?
It's gotta be those hills, right?
Yeah, it's pretty great. Awesome.
But then Hopkinton winning the team championship, and but it was the boys' side was pretty exciting. The scores were nobody was super duper low, so it was really a pretty competitive
tight race.
Yeah, Hopkinton won by 21, but their score was 127, Fall Mountain 148. And I mean,
that's close. You can't really call that if you're not looking at the results online.
Kind of what I was just going to say. I will bet if I was their coach and I was watching that and I was Hopkinton, I'd be like, I think we got that, right. But I'm nervous.
Yeah, that brings me back to when I used to have athletes standing at the finish line, actually recording all places so I could try to figure out what the places were.
Yeah, shout out to Lance Timing for making us not do that anymore. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so great just pulling that up and watching it automatically.
I used to sit there and score it, and all the girls were looking over my shoulder, and I didn't know how accurate it was anyways, because I didn't know who didn't have scoring teams, but just trying to figure it out on paper. But so that's really
one of my new
really
favorite
cool.
things, though, is legit watching the Lancer timing updates that as teams get their fifth runner in, and then all of a sudden seeing big shifts, it's like, oh no, wait, it changed.
I just want to jump in right here. I was standing at the tree right before the final straightaway, and I was looking at, okay, there's 3 from this team, 4 from this team, whatever, and then by the time everyone's 5 had gone through, I was like, I don't know who won this, and it's not, I don't know who won this between this team or this team. It was I don't know who won this between 6 different teams. It was so close, and there was so many teams that were within 10, 20 points. I was like, I have literally no idea who won this.
Yeah, that's really cool, especially for small schools where it might be harder to get people out for the team and stuff. They're all getting quality runners and competing with one another, so that's really neat.
I'm always super impressed by Amy and I, we work at a school with 3,000 kids, so finding 20 or 25 kids to be on our team is not super duper hard. So these teams that manage to with only 50 or 100 kids there, that you're managing to get a full cross country team, you guys are amazing. That's an incredible feat, and it's awesome. And I love that there are people out there that are dedicated to finding kids and
making this sport fun for them.
Exactly right. Because otherwise they would stop.
Right. So cool. And then, last races of the day in the toughest conditions, all around, were the Division II races. And we knew that the Division II girls race was going to totally be a nail biter.
On both sides. The boys and girls, man, there was both sides were just so exciting, all year. It wasn't just this neat. They've been exciting all year to watch.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know that it was a surprise that Oyster River came out with the victory, but, we knew that Leia was going to take it right out, and true to form, she was the top runner on the girls' side for the day.
Dominant season for her.
Yep. Having the fastest time.
I can't wait to see what she does over these next 2 weeks.
Sure.
She's just been.
Yeah.
You know what I love about her? She's one of those I'm not even going to screw around. I'm not going to play
just games. Right from the front.
The gun fires and she's like, chase me.
Yep.
You can try, but I will be going from step 1, 100%.
Remember MI when she went out ahead of Ruth?
Yeah.
So New England will be excited. So shout out to her for having the top female time on the day. And then, Oyster River's tight pack, again, having 5 in the top 10. So Madeline Cook finishing 10th place. They have a top 1-2 that are a really good 1-2 punch. So they should be a real force this weekend.
At their finish order, 2, 4, 6, 7, 10.
Yeah, that brings me back.
Whoa.
Yeah,
and it's one thing if you then end up beating the field by 100 points. I think everyone would be like, yeah, we just have this one. They only won by 4 points.
I know.
Hanover 1, 3, 5, 11, 13.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
My girls
probably had to be the best race of the day.
My girls rushed back so they could see it. They wanted to see that race.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was real. Yeah. So, I mean, and Hanover had 3 in the top 10. So
I'll tell you, again, Hanover followed Leia's lead. She went out from the gun, and that top 5 from Hanover, went right to the front. They were like, we are taking over this race. We are in charge of this. And so by the time they got to the mile, Hanover had a pretty decent lead, not a huge lead, but they were in charge of the race. And then they go up the hill a little bit, and then by the time we saw them come back down, though, Oyster River just planted themselves. Leia got the number 1 stick, but then it was just Oyster River, and I think just that second mile was basically what made that race. Because Hanover really went after it, and so that was just super exciting. Probably my race of the day, because it was, I mean, it went even to the finish. It was so close the entire way. And,
Right.
and there was like a lot of different moves that were made that just kind of decided it either way. So
Sounds like the race against us in Bedford last year is very, very similar, that it unfolded that way. And I think with Derryfield, it definitely is about being patient. There is a piece to that. And, you know, there is a sense of urgency and running with a sense of urgency, but also being patient at Derryfield. But that strategy may play out in quite a different way if they utilize something similar this coming weekend on a flatter course. So, you know,
one of the things I love about the end of our season is we have 1 week that's on this really hilly, very sort of technical course.
Right.
And then you go to this Saturday and it's kind of it's a bit of a race course to a degree, right?
Right.
It's real fast, it's real flat, and I think it really plays the different types of runner strengths.
Yeah, you really have to approach both of them kind of differently.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like Oyster River this weekend, like I think, you know, that was kind of like their plan, but then they also kind of have to keep it in their heads that like even if they are behind at like the mile or even like the 2 mile, like that's okay because you know, you can still make things happen at that point. Whereas I think at a race like Meet Champions, whether it's Alvern or Mines Falls, like both similar courses where you kind of want to be in a good spot early enough to just race at that point, because it's just a little bit harder to come from behind on a course that isn't going to make people kind of fall apart the last like mile or 800 or something.
Especially once you get into the trail when it narrows, you know what I'm saying? Then you get kind of locked into a position.
Those kind of quick turns.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be tough.
Yeah. So, and you said on the boys' side, it was a similar situation.
Yeah, it was not quite as that was the race.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
yeah.
You can't come that close. I mean, it's crazy. The boys' one was also really exciting, though. Hanover involved in this one too, but with Co Brown, and it was kind of a little bit of a surprise. Hanover had started out the season sort of ahead of them, but then all of a sudden, about 2/3 of the way through the season, all of a sudden Co Brown started hitting these home runs.
Right.
So now, and then Hanover had a big day on Saturday, and they took the W. But it was again 40-62. Those are great scores. Number one, those are close scores.
Right, they are. Yeah.
But also shout out to Jamie Lano, who was the race winner. But then again, our one of our Hoka athlete of the week, Toulouche, man, does he deserve it? He was in 5th at like the 2 mile mark.
Oh wow!
And that whole last mile, man, I'd love to have a split for him,
right?
Because he was the 5th place guy, Lucian from Hanover, ran a 16:45. He was almost 20 seconds ahead of him by the end. So he must have absolutely blazed through that final mile.
It's hard to make moves like that.
Oh, it sure is. And I bet Jamie had no idea this dude was, you know, if this was a 5,100 meter race,
sure,
maybe the story would have been ended a little different.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, so he had a great race, and then you know, Hanover was awesome in this race, you know, similarly to the other one. But you know, I'm looking right here. There were 4, 5, 7, 8, like, and then the next was 16.
Wow,
man, you got
dominant
4 out of 5 in the top 10.
Sure, yeah, that's awesome.
But that's been kind of been the story for them all season. They've just been really, really strong.
Right.
So yeah, so now I'm super excited for tomorrow.
Right.
Meet Champions. It's Friday. In case you
know
that.
Yeah.
We get to see what happens tomorrow. But so first we wanted one last thing with this weekend.
So,
past weekend.
Well, we were just wanted to like take a moment and just talk about the weather, right? Because and we're going to see some very different weather tomorrow than we saw last weekend.
We were on the New England Express this week.
Yeah.
They were like, here's 80, here's 40.
Right.
What are you going to do?
I run in the morning and it's like, now it's 29. Yeah.
I remember leaving on Saturday. Someone would be like, we might get snow Wednesday. Being like, I hate you. Thanks.
So, you know, we had been preparing for that all week. And, you know, I told the girls, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, you people need to be hydrating. Like, it's going to be hot and it's going to feel real warm because it's not August. It is now almost November. You know, so I think it felt hotter than we even expected.
Yeah, so I'm a crazy person, and I run up that hill over and over again.
Sure.
I like to be up at the top of the ski hill. And like one thing you'll know if you've ever been up there is that occasionally the hill wins.
Yeah.
And people walk.
Yeah.
Going up that last really steep little section. But it's usually like a handful.
Yeah.
3, 4, maybe you'll see if you stay up there the whole time. Oh, it was double digits.
Right.
I was stunned at the number of people. And it's funny because if you looked at the thermometer, you'd be like, Oh, 72. Beautiful day for running.
Right.
No, not after it had been 50 for 2 weeks.
And it felt humid. I wouldn't say humid. Like super sticky, but humid enough.
No, it wasn't August, but it was definitely. So during the middle of this past week, I saw Connecticut postponed some of their state meet. Yeah, they started the day and then pulled the plug and moved the races to Monday. And it was funny because it's on this coaches forum from coaches all over the country. The Florida and the Texas coaches were in there like talking smack.
Oh,
like,
I'm sure.
Well, if it was 93 in Florida, we'd still be running. And it's like, yeah, but not if it had been 60 for 2 weeks before. Your kids would have melted.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we ran into. It's a great example of context in running. Right?
Sure. And what I found, or like what the girls said to us, after they had raced, is that it was really when they hit the field that they really felt the heat. Because you're kind of the beginning. It's like we actually had some ice, and we were telling them to like shove it and in places and all the things. And, and I said, it's not even that hot, guys, but like, you want to do this now. So you can get through a mile, right? And then
I did something similar with my guys. I was like, dump some water on your head, get your body into that.
Because it gets you through a mile.
At least give yourself a little time.
And then you're in the woods. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like really when they hit that grass and it was full sun. That's when it was like, ooh, okay.
I don't know if you did this at all. So when I was getting ready to go up the hill, I would run from the field, and then I went up the same hill that they went.
Yeah.
The marked difference between being on the pavement and you get about 10 steps into the trail and the temperature was much lower.
Right.
It was genuinely cooler. And so that makes it almost even worse though. Because then when you do get back out of the sun, you're like, oh, that is a temperature change. And I feel bad.
Right. So do we think that had any reflection or any impact on the races? What do we think about that?
I think anybody who had gone in with a plan of trying to be really aggressive early, the nature of that is you are going to red line a little earlier than you normally would, but you're kind of rolling those dice and just saying, you know what, I think I'm tough enough to hold on. Well, a normal day, maybe you were, but I think on this Saturday, I think you maybe got punished a little more than you would have been expecting to.
Right.
And that maybe the mental strength wasn't going to be enough to keep you rolling when you were kind of relying on it to help you get through a physical barrier,
I think that it's when you have conditions like that, you got to take your time goals out of it.
Oh, for sure.
And it's all about placing. And so, I've done a couple marathons that were in the 90 degrees too. And the people who went out for the time that they wanted to run, they were on the side of the road walking and I was passing them. It's like, you got to just say, okay, well, the conditions have dealt me this. It's cross country. Like I got to dial the pace back a little bit and really focus on position. And that's what it's all about anyways, right? Like it might not have been a PR day for everybody is all.
And, there's a difference between success and success today.
Right.
And sometimes you got to recognize what success is going to look like today.
Right.
And it might not have been what you thought. Again, we make goals in August. Hey, at D1s this year, I'm going to break 17 or something like that. And if you can't be someone who shows up that day and says, this ain't a sub 17 day for me, I would just barely do it if it was 50 out. It's not.
Right.
So maybe today, if I break 17:30, that's maybe a more realistic. Maybe it's just I try to beat, person that I've really been trying to beat all season, and you got to be adaptive. Otherwise, you're gonna beat yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, this is right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just
gonna. It's not track, right? So we're out there in the elements. That's all part of it. It's like that's the special sauce, if you will, right?
Yeah, it is. The ice roll.
So what were you gonna say there?
Well, I was just gonna say that's an important thing to kind of keep in mind going forwards too, because on the other end of things, like you're probably not going to run your best race if it's like 20 and snowing out either.
Sure.
Like when you were talking about like marathons when it's really hot out, look at Boston in 2018 when it was super, super cold and rainy. And
I was there.
Yeah, so a bunch of people went out like super hard and were like, oh, I'm just going to run my normal race and it's going to be great. But like, you can't do that.
Move up.
So I will tell you, I was there. I ran. My team actually took home the Masters Championship. So I have a crystal ball from Boston.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
That's just patting your own back a little bit. Love it.
It was. It definitely was. A top 5 moment for me in my running career for sure.
Heck yeah.
But
we all have our brag-worthy moments.
Yeah.
And that is 100%
yeah,
one that deserves to be bragged about.
Hey, thanks. But so we took that actually, and how Des won the marathon that year, right? And it was about toughness. Nobody's talking about her time. It's all about being tough. So we actually took a video and footage of that, and we showed it in our locker room the following D1, the week before D1s, because we were going to have a really nasty weather condition in 2018. And we showed it to them, and we said, look, like, this is not about times. This is about who perseveres. And look at this example. Nobody's going to look at it and say, oh, well, remember when Des ran a 2:40, whatever, at the Boston Marathon. No, they're talking about the fact that she won the Boston Marathon. It doesn't matter. Like, she was the toughest one on the day. And that's what we used as an example. And we did win in 2018. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but we went into it knowing it was going to be nasty. You had the right kind of fire up there.
Yeah.
So,
and
I mean, yeah,
everybody's running in the same conditions too. It's like, if you're worried about time, like, you're racing people who are running in other conditions or on other courses or what, it's like you're only racing the people that are there that day. And
exactly,
if it's hot, if it's cold, if it's perfect conditions, like, everybody has the same environment. And so, all you have to do is worry about that environment,
Yeah. And yourself, right? Keeping yourself together. And I feel like in those types of conditions, that's when being a part of a team and knowing that you matter, that you're a part of the team, that's when that matters and makes it so much better, right? Because, like, if you're just out there running for yourself, you could be like, well, forget this, right? But when you matter for the team, it doesn't matter, like, how you feel, like, or what the weather is doing. You still know that you have got to perform for your team. So,
best motivator, right?
Right? Exactly.
I mean, individually, you can, like,
people rely.
Yeah, you can personally just say, oh, I have made the decision that I don't feel like doing this, and I'm the only one that I'm letting down right now. Like, you're like, I'm calling it. This is not worth it, right? But when you're on a team, it's like you can't make that decision. So the only choice you have is to just keep going and do everything you can for that team.
Yeah. And, I argue it's those types of situations, like when I've raced in those types of conditions, that I actually have the fondest memories of after the fact.
Oh, definitely.
During it, I'll tell you, during the 2018 Boston Marathon, I was literally laughing out loud as I was, like, the rain was coming down and sideways,
somehow
and it was 30 like 4 degrees, and I was like, I may actually get hypothermia out here, like, legitimately. I did not throw away my throwaway until I crested the hill at BC. I literally kept my throwaway on for 21 miles. It's usually something you throw off in like 2 miles or something. So but you know what that, like, I look back at it and it's like, man, like, that is such a memory to persevere through that. And, like, it just shows you something about, like, what you're capable of.
And I think I like that idea. It's that idea of, like, you have an opportunity to know what you're capable of. And I think, again, personal motivation can take you so far. It's like, I really want to reach my goals, but sometimes to find that, like, last little gear, it takes feeling like you're part of something bigger than you. One of your runners, I think, experienced some of that. She didn't end up quite finishing, but like, I was talking to her yesterday. I said she didn't quite finish the race, not by choice. Body literally was like, I've given you all I got, man. I'm out. She didn't remember the entire last mile of the race, she told me. But, like, the fact that she was in a place where her memory afterwards refused to tell her what happened.
Yeah.
But she was scared about her team so much that, like, she was somehow able to, like, push through being in that kind of place for that long. And that's incredible to me. It's, like, such a great comment about, like, the spirit of sports and how much we care about being a good teammate and camaraderie. And, like, that's amazing to me. Shout out to Gabby.
Yeah. And we never want to see anyone having a struggle like that.
No, of course not.
And certainly I would never, like, tell her to push through it.
Don't do that.
But I also can say that I couldn't be more proud of Gabby Bedard.
Yeah.
And I think that plaque that we earned is largely because of Gabby Bedard. So shout out to her.
I think it's funny because probably in life, like she will probably think of that forever. Like that's going to be like a long-term running memory in that, like how hard she was able to push herself. I'm sure she's frustrated that it didn't extend for her exactly what she wanted. But like, I think being able to have those moments where you realize how strong you really can be when you need to, I think that's powerful.
Yeah. You know? And you give everything to your team.
Absolutely.
So speaking of teams, we have a big race coming up.
We do, as it turns out.
There's champions
tomorrow.
And
big stuff on the line here. Who wants to go to Belfast, Maine?
Well, I know I do.
I mean, I don't want to like physically move from here to there, but I do want to be
like
there.
The idea of it sounds good. Like, you know, New England, that sounds great. Yeah.
About like if we were competing there, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Particularly because this is kind of funny on my side. Can we start with the boys this time?
Yes, let's do it. They're at what time? 3:20?
Yeah, the boys are at 3:20. Yeah. So my current situation, my boys were awesome on Saturday. Shout out to the Londonderry boys. You improved all season long. You worked your butts off. We came into the season unranked. We were the 7th New Hampshire team on the merge. 7th, which would mean not going next weekend. So but in like 20 points, not a huge margin, but big enough that they're going to have to, you know, if they want to go, they're going to have to be a little better.
Right.
My top guy, 26th.
Oh.
So we are like, so on the edge of maybe going, maybe not going.
Here we go. You got to do it. Yeah.
So it'll be amazing to see if my guys can put it together. And I really want the team to go. Shout out to Carson, you know, again, if you top 25, all New Hampshire and all that, you're amazing. And sophomore, he's had an amazing year. Love to see Carson make it on his own. But I really want my collective team. Yeah,
there's just something different about being able to have your team with you too. You know,
getting into New England's is hard.
It is.
End of sentence.
Yeah,
you know?
And I remember years ago it was like almost an automatic for us because we're just so much bigger. But the teams are just like all of New Hampshire cross country is just so much stronger that nothing is guaranteed.
Totally agree.
Nothing is guaranteed. I mean, on the girls' side, I think it looks like we have Oyster River, Hanover, and Pinkerton being the strongest teams going into this for sure. I would give the edge to Oyster River because we've beat them. I mean, not we've beat them. They have beat all the other teams every time that we've lined up.
And obviously, again, looked amazing on Saturday.
Yeah, and they won the Battle of the Border. Yep. So right there. And they're tight. They have a tight pack. But I think, I like any of the 3 teams on the day, you just got to see what's going to happen. So similar
stuff on the boys side. South Hanover and Co-Brown look, pretty locked in. And so it'll be Pinkerton, Salem, Bedford are the 4, 5, 6. Is it likely that anyone's going to bump them off? No.
Right.
But is it absolutely in the realm of, technically anybody can lose on a given day, but their position's maybe not quite as safe as those top 3. Like they need to be ready to show up and bring their A game. Otherwise, Londonderry could be the one that
sneaks in.
Yeah, all of a sudden you guys will be watching from YouTube instead of getting to spend 5 hours in a bus.
And I will say, I have been on both sides of having our 6th runner decide whether we go or not go. And I've been on both sides. So again, we're going to go back to it is about team and everybody matters. Yep. And so if you are towing the line this Saturday, you better believe that you matter to your team.
Every guy could be the guy.
Right.
Londonderry, so we beat Souhegan for the first time all year on Saturday. Again, based off the merge, it's only 4 points.
Right.
That's like a breath.
Right.
If Souhegan ended up bumping us and another team out of that top 6 based off of how they've been all year, I would be 0% surprised.
Right. Yeah. So it should be really interesting. On the girls' side, it looks to me like Bedford and Dover have a really solid shot of being in that top 6. And obviously they match up. Bedford has their really low numbers 1 and 2. And as the meets get bigger, I think that begins to matter more. Yep. Especially when we go to New England. That's gonna give Hanover an edge for sure. We know that Leia is gonna have a low placing, we would expect. So certainly I think that's gonna matter more. But I think we should see both of those teams. And then I think it's kind of a toss-up between Exeter and Concord. That's what I would say at this point. But
so who shows up?
No, yeah, it is who shows up.
Who wants it?
And it's also keeping everybody healthy. Not everybody might, be able to run this week. 3 back-to-back meets are hard.
Yeah. And D1s is such an interesting, one of those things where you don't realize sometimes that people are just barely holding together, and they give it everything they've got at D1s in a literal sense, and that's it. Season's all done because they ran through an injury for as long as they could, and they run into the end of the line, and they just can't make it work any longer.
I think that was us last year for what were our freshmen. It's like they really left it out there in D1s, and we were so proud of them. And that was that. I mean, Meet the Champions was hard. They were tired, and rightfully so. So
you can only a bunch of years ago, I saw this guy who was he was coached at a university, and he talked about this idea that, like, in a sense, runners are like a revolver. They have so many bullets that you can fire, and I think we do some of these meets where we really truly max ourselves out, like. That bullet's spent.
Right.
You don't get to shoot it again. And now, and like you said, your girls last year, and as someone who, was there cheering for those girls, like 100%, like they didn't it wasn't a physical run from them. There was an emotional piece to it as well.
Yeah.
That they invested themselves both physically and emotionally. Mm-hmm. And that just burns through you, man. You can only do that once in a while. And to come down on the other side, sometimes it's not just the next day. Sometimes it's the next week or next 2 or 3 weeks. And it can be hard to get fired up again that way after you've done it once.
So that's kind of what I wanted to kind of conclude with talking about this week, was just like, how do we motivate our athletes to continue to perform into this postseason? Because we're so unique. There's very few sports that have essentially their championship, right? So we consider the divisionals our championships and state champions, and then continue to compete and have to compete at such a high level for 2 more weeks. I look at the postseason as almost a second season. It's like the second half of the season.
And occasionally we're blessed and have kids who are hoping to make it to things like Nike Foot Locker Nationals and things like that. And that adds another entire kink to the mix. Like, you got to train a completely different way. If you have somebody who's a genuine possible Foot Locker individual or a Nike team, how do you do it? Like, what do you have to do?
And so what are your thoughts, Coach, about like, how do you keep them motivated to perform week after week? And how do we stay at that peak performance?
So it's such a tricky game, because I think to some degree, some of that has to be decided before the season even starts. Yeah. You have to be a little bit prepared for what you're, as a coach, what you're bringing to the table this year. And, sometimes you recognize that D1s is the goal, that's the highest goal you're going to reach that year. And so you want to prepare your team to be at their absolute pinnacle on that day. Sometimes you realize, though, that, we have a chance at a New England championship.
Right.
And you do have to coach it a little bit differently. To some degree, you have to be good at actually holding your kids back to a degree in D1s in that case, and holding them back a little bit at Meet the Champions. Because like I said, that idea of like, we only do have so many shots in us of maxing ourselves out. So you got to be, as a coaching level, someone who can moderate their race investment and say, guys, if we're trying to win a New England championship, we can only really mentally go 90% at D1, 90% at Meet the Champions, so that we can get to 100% still at. Because do you think you can go 100% 3 weeks in a row?
Yeah, I don't think that I could.
I know personally I can't.
No. And it honestly it was easier back in the day when I first started coaching.
When we were young.
When I first started coaching and Meet the Champions was really just a qualifier. In fact, it still is just a qualifier. They never used to even announce the teams in order or anything. But now, we've kind of made a bigger deal of it. The kids care. And, the individuals are trying to perform 3 weeks in a row to get selected for, their top 10 in their state and in the divisionals. So there's a lot on the line. So it used to be a little bit easier to take a breath in the middle, maybe make a few substitutions and
Unless
take it easy.
Who was maybe going to be a state champion, like they maybe still needed to kind of, battle it up a little bit.
But now,
otherwise, you could say like, hey, we're trying to just go hard enough to make it. There is no plaque this week.
So I think, for me with the training, it's always about thinking about quality versus quantity, and maybe keeping some of the quantity down during this time to allow them some time to recover, because the fitness is there, right? And really just
things have gone the way they're supposed to. Yeah, right? Should be.
Yeah, and then it's like the workouts are sort of just like fine tuning at this point. you know.
The hay is in the barn.
It sure is. Oh, thank you. A little Mike Clark.
I was going to say a little Clark is in there.
But yeah, it is. And, and then you're kind of thinking about the course and talking about like, how is it different? And like, what do we need to focus on? But just trying to like almost put blinders on. It's like, okay, last week, goal accomplished. Now, like just this week. And we don't think further than that, right? Like,
so you and I, like this year, our teams were sort of in different places, right?
Yeah.
You came into the season with the team that absolutely was competing to win the division, and competing to do well at Meet of Champions. But then, hopefully having at least some shot at maybe even winning New England's. Yeah.
I definitely think we would like to do well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does well mean for you in this case? Top 5, top 10?
Oh man, is he making me answer that question?
Yes, you're on the spot.
I think it depends if everybody's healthy and can race. I mean, outside shot, I feel like we have a good shot at top 5.
Top 5, and that's obviously.
And I don't
top 3
say that.
Plaques. If you've never been to New England, they get these really amazing. They're not really plaques. They're almost like statues.
Yeah,
they're really neat.
Yeah, and I don't say that lightly, folks. I don't. And you know what? Our biggest competition are going to be some teams in our state, so that's
and
pretty
CVU.
Cool. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, so it's pretty cool to think about that and think about how we're going to perform as a state,
so
for sure.
Do you think you coached your team differently would have? I know that I had to coach my team differently because we were somebody who were just like, man, if we came in ranked like 11th in the state. So making it to even, and we were 8th in our division, which is not going. So our goals really revolved around D1s and having a successful day at D1. Right. So now we're here at Meet of Champions. So what do we do? We kind of all season long, we prepped you just to even make it to here. So I expect my guys to like die. I mean, I know optimistically, I'm like, yeah, of course they do it again. And they have this, because they all ran super duper well because they were kind of peaked for D1s. So now I have to sort of get them to this place where it's like, yep, find the gear again.
Right.
It's so hard.
I know. It is hard. It is hard.
And then if we do make it, to see what you get at New England.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, just about trying to be in the moment a little bit in each of these races. And I think just really focusing on the positives, right? And kind of where you are. I don't know. I never go into a season. We never go into a season saying we want to win, even though like we don't use that word because we get nervous when we use the W word. But like, you go into the season knowing that you want your athletes to perform the best that they can for themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So like we just try to set them up to be prepared to be able to undergo what they need to be the best for themselves. How's that?
It's a great answer.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then every year is different, right? Every year is different. And then it's about like just really cultivating, I think, a love for the sport. Because once you do that and you love what we do, then the other stuff just comes.
I agree. And again, you and I have continued running for many years, and it's because we love running.
Right. I would say though, like for some of the kids that I've coached that are like super high achieving and hardworking and stuff, a lot of times at this point it's like reeling them in. You know what I mean? Because they want to run so hard at practice because they're so fit, like every day. And it's like, nope, like we got to take those days and we got to like really focus so that we're fresh. Because it's like you can't go run 7-minute pace every day out on the roads and then feel good back to back to back.
And additionally, you're giving them a workout and saying like, all right, we're going to run 1,000 and I need you to run a 305. And then they run the first one and it comes in at like a 257. Right. And you're like, whoa, I understand physically you can do that. But like, we're not at that part of the season anymore. Yeah. Like we're just trying to, you may not feel like you're just holding together, but I promise you at this point, you are. Your body's at the edge, all of you.
And might I say, it's cross country, it's not track season, and we don't need to run that fast.
Right.
So we also want to keep it together and not get injured.
Right. So you don't want to push yourself across that edge. You again, just some of you guys have been running since like July 1st. You started training for this season in July, maybe even late June.
Sure.
And if you don't think that your body, it's been 5 months.
Yeah.
If you don't think your body's at a place where it's sort of at its limit and it's again, just kind of barely holding together, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Human body's an amazing machine and it will take a lot of what we'll throw at it. but it does have limits. And there's a reason why we don't just continuously train nonstop all year long, that you have to have these breaks built in, because it can only go for so long.
Can you just tell me that personally occasionally? Because I need that reminder.
To be honest,
for
me too.
Myself.
As you and I, we've aged in running, and you can get away with that a little more when you're a teenager, but especially in your 20s, I think it's really when your body's at its absolute strongest, you get away with some things that you won't get away with otherwise. But it comes eventually.
Yeah.
Even when you're in your 20s, you hit a spot where your body's like, hey, you're not quitting. Now you are, because I'm making you. Enjoy your hamstring injury and sitting on your butt for the next 10 days because you didn't listen to me when I told you I was tired.
Although I will say, on the flip side, I ran a marathon PR at the age of 41. So
it's because you're a machine.
Oh, well, I don't feel like one now. But I'm just saying, so, for all of our listeners out there, like, running gives so many gifts, and you have such a career ahead of you. It's taken me so many places, and I'm just so thankful to be able to do the sport that I love for as long as I have.
Absolutely. That's the best thing about the sport is you can.
Yeah,
you
can kind of like change. And you can change things, so.
It's just fun when people who you knew when you were a high school kid, you get to be an adult, and all of a sudden you'll have friends who find running later in life.
Right.
And you remember them in high school being like, I could never run a mile.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, so I'm training for a half marathon, and you're like, whoa, hold up, you're doing what? And they're like, yeah, I decided to run a half marathon. Dear God, please help me. And you're like, of course I'll help you. I know so much about this. And then you get to help them, and it's amazing.
Well, you know what I think it is too, is that for many people, they were athletes and they were competitive their whole life, right? But then they get out of college and they can't do, like, you could do a pickup league in soccer, or like, my husband's in a baseball league. It's actually pretty competitive now. Like, that's over 38. And then over 38.
Over 38. I like that.
There
isn't. They threw the
lineup
specifically
right? 38. But there isn't a lot of opportunity for that. But there is in running. So I think a lot of athletes find running later in life because it gives them that outlet.
It's so much easier to fit into your schedule than some other things. And you'll find as you start having kids and stuff like that, right? That, it's about those free moments you get. You don't always pick when they are anymore. And so running is something that I think really lends itself to just, I have an hour right now. Where are my shoes?
Right. And I would say that we went off on a tangent a little bit, but
we did,
I will also say that, in talking about the fact that we were saying, how do we stay motivated and how do we keep performing week after week after week? I think it's just really about, going into each race with a positive attitude and kind of letting go of what happened before, and, being open to the new scenario, and also kind of giving yourself a little bit of grace, because I know sometimes you go into races and you feel horrible. Sometimes the more horrible I felt, the better I've run. You just don't know.
You don't.
And all you can do is just the best you can do on that day.
Yep. And I think you just remember, isn't that and find the things that you find that are fun about it, and try to focus on those things, and try not to get too hung up on the fact that, you're a little tired. Oh, my Achilles is a little sore. This is a little sore. And just find the things that you love about being out there, which is, I know for me, it was always just like getting to be out there with my buddies.
Right. At the end of the day, it's 20 minutes, right? We can do anything for 20 minutes. Like, I'm just saying roughly, whatever. But yeah, I mean, we can do anything for 20 minutes. And it definitely is something that the memories will last a lifetime. I mean, we can sit here and say that as old people, but they really will. So treasure that time with your teams while you can. You all have some special stuff happening on these teams, and New Hampshire cross country is such a special thing to be a part of. We are so lucky.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I love New Hampshire cross country.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good segue to the end. I would say I also love New Hampshire cross country. How about you?
I love New Hampshire cross country. We love all of you too.
Yeah.
All the listeners, you guys are amazing.
Yeah. So
again, please find us and tell us things you want us to talk about. We're trying to come up with topics every week. And
please do.
It's great for you guys.
And shout out to Runners Alley for sponsoring our New Hampshire cross country website.
I love Runners Alley.
Right. And shout out to, let's just say again, keep turning in those pictures, videos, all the things to the Hoka.
Oh, we love the Alvern coaching staff, because this course is going to be amazing.
I'm so ready for that. Yeah. Shout out to them.
You guys are amazing, Halvard. Thank you for having the meet.
Much love.
Building one of the nicest courses in the state.
Absolutely. All right. Well, until next week, folks, good luck.